Hello and welcome to Third Eye TV Africa. My name is Joy Malik. The insurgency in Nigeria has been raging on for nearly 14 years, leaving in its wake a trail of destruction, deaths and displacement. Despite the efforts of the government and security forces, the conflict shows no signs of abating, and the economy of war has created a complex web of interests and beneficiaries. Now, joining us today is Brigadier General Sani Usman Chikal, who is the former Director of Army Public Relations and spokesman for the Nigerian Army. Today, we'll talk about the insecurity in the country and explore the possibilities for peace and reconciliation in Nigeria. Welcome, sir.
Thank you so much.
Well, as the insurgency in Nigeria approaches its 14th year, the nation grapples with the question of how to bring an end to the conflict. How can this be addressed to bring about a lasting resolution?
Well, I think, thank you so much for having me, and congratulations anyway.
Thank you.
However, my name is Kuka Sheka, not Sheka, but it's okay, Sani Usman Kuka Sheka.
Thank you.
How do we, it's something that we've been dealing with for the past 14 years or thereabout. That means something, is being done about it. So it is not as if it is something that is new or novel to us. And given the fact that the nature of insurgency is ever evolving and mutating in various shapes and forms, if you look at it way back, maybe 2009, let's say 2009, 2010, if we are going to even use up to 2015 thereabout, if we are going to use the Federal Capital Territory as an example, Abuja city as it were, the insurgents have had the effrontery to, desecrate all the symbol of democracy and governance. Take, for instance, United Nations building was bombed. The police headquarters was also bombed.
Yeah.
We have had instances of bomb blast at Mogadishu Cantonment. Commercial and worship center, what happened at Madala, this day newspaper, as well as the Banex Plaza, and of course the Yanya bus terminal. And some time ago I was talking with someone that beyond all those things, even the number of security checkpoints within the city of Abuja was unprecedented and all the rest of the thing. But within that period of time, this to a large extent have been mitigated. You have not heard of, attacks in the federal capital. In fact, almost the northeast, north central, and the insurgents were confined to, northeastern Borno and Yobe State, now to Sambisa, Alagarno, and eventually to the fringes of Lake Chad, despite the alliances and the splinter groups that they have, and you no longer hear the sacking of towns. For those of us that have fought, I was at the theater, for 1 year between 2014 2015. I know what it was. When you are talking about Konduga, you are talking about Goza, when you are talking so on and so forth. So now, what are those things? I think the most important thing is just to look at what are those things that you've been doing that are yielding, the desired result or successes. And what are those things that tend to be an impediment? So you improve on those good things that you are doing and mitigate those impediments as it were. Bearing in mind, I can see that you are saying there is an economy of war. I think it's war economy. It's an economic system that, evolved or rather revolved around any complex situation. That means you have people, take for instance, who is it that supplies the insurgent arms?
Yes.
Who are their, logistic backers and all the rest, who are funding them and all the rest. What level of support do they get from the community? Remember, around Pulka, Michika and all the rest, in those days, despite the warning, despite all these things, you should not, you think, but meanwhile it is full stop that they will just go and drop because their children were also part of it. So, yeah. and that is why it is far more difficult than in most normal complex situation, because the insurgent are mingled with the society. So I think we should also give credit to the security forces and, of course, the Nigerian people as a whole, because in other climes, take for instance, Colombia fought insurgency for 58 years to reach, a resolution. And here we are within 15 years, or so to speak, we're able to achieve this much despite impediments. You remember what happened? Particularly, United States refused, to sell weapons, much needed weapons and other, equipment to Nigeria, simply because there were allegations of human rights abuses and all the rest. And in most cases, this emanates from citizens. And that is one other thing: the issue of mobilizing the whole society. When was the last? When was the Second World War ended? Getting to 70-something years. But I can rest assure you, all the countries involved, all their citizens, to a large extent, they were on the same page. When you are faced with existential threat or security challenges like that, first and foremost, you mobilize all the resources available to you, not just necessarily material or human, but most importantly the human, not even the fighters or the military and security forces, but even the society, because you need their support, you need their cooperation, because these insurgents, they are the son and parents and husbands of so many other people that live in the cities, live in the town. So these are the issues. And if you are putting the issue of insurgency, if you are dealing with it on 100% scale, the kinetic or the military aspect of it is less than 40%, or at most 40%. So that means the higher percentage of 60% need to be dealt with. And who does that? The other components of Nigerian society. So these are some of the things that you look at and see how best you can mitigate it. And I am so happy to realize that there is a now renewed vigor in dealing with it, more so that we have suffered certain setback in the northeast. You remember where over 20 soldiers, and including a commanding officer, that was killed. Yeah. So these are some of the things. What are those things? What brought about it? So you contextualize it, given the particular instance, and see how best you can. At the same time, again, you look at what are those things needed. Is it in terms of equipment, in terms of logistics, in terms of the number of the troops? Yes, it is. Bearing in mind that you have this security challenges, and apart from dealing with insurgency, you have other geopolitical regions that are dealing with or experiencing some security challenges. Take for instance Northwest, banditry and kidnapping, and other places. Into the extent now we have a new group, the Lakurawa, and so on and so forth. So basically these are the issues that need to be done. But most importantly, the lasting solution, I think, is to improve on good governance, because first and foremost, dealing with these issues, at the same time you have to address the root causes and the triggers that brought about these conflicts in the first instance.
Okay. Well, the use of kinetic energy or force has been a dominant approach to counter-insurgency in Nigeria, but its effectiveness has been questioned. Do you think it's time to shift away from this approach and explore alternate strategies?
I think no society has ever succeeded, in dealing with conflicts of this nature and magnitude by use of kinetic. Hence, the need to combine the two. And of course, even in Nigeria, there's a concerted effort in, using the carrot and stick, strategy. Now, yes, and we have just mentioned it, about 60-40%. So the non-kinetic aspect of it, which I have touched on some of it, like the issue of good governance, addressing the root causes, because to a large extent, resource sharing and resource management, it could be space, it could be material things. But what I'm trying to say here is that you have to look at it from the perspective, because there are some of these conflicts, they start locally, so you don't allow it to persist and to escalate to the extent of drafting the military or the security forces. We should also revisit our time-tested conflict resolution mechanism, in dealing with some of these conflicts before they escalate. Take for instance, I made reference to the good governance and Take for instance, there is a particular local government that I know which borders one of our neighboring countries, just 35 kilometers from the local government headquarters. You will enter into another country. But I can rest assure you that local government has nothing in terms of infrastructural development to show that it is a local government headquarters. And that local government headquarters had been in existence for over 30 years. For those of us that are old enough to know the time of General Babangida's time, when they introduced the Directorate of Rural Development and Infrastructure, DIFRI for short, which was headed by Air Vice Marshal Larry Koyen of blessed memory. It is just feeder road, it is not even Kolta. But I can rest assure you, not even the feeder road that leads to the headquarters of that local government. I'm talking about, I don't know, well, you are in Abuja, so you are not exposed to all this hardship, so you hardly know. For those of us who come from the village, we can understand what it means by this feeder roads. It's just sand, so you charge through. So what happened to school? What happened to hospital? What happened to, and that is what the insurgents take and do advantage and pitch the citizens against the government. So had it been that the people are given sense of belonging, and of course all of us are experiencing the economic hardship. So unless you improve the economic, socio-economic well-being of the people, then you leave them vulnerable to the antics of these criminal elements in the society. And again, you have to also improve on the capacity of the responding agency. Who are the responding agencies? I'm talking about the military and the security forces. Take for instance again, to what extent have you, invested in our policing system over time to make them capable of dealing with security challenges or criminalities of the 21st century in terms of equipment, in terms of training, in terms of number? So these are the issues that, sincerely speaking, it should be a combination of both kinetic and non-kinetic if you are dealing with any complex situation. More so that everything revolves around the people, so you don't antagonize the people when you are trying to secure them and make meaningful development. And you have to also make sure that everybody in the society is given greater sense of belonging, because he or she has a role to play in dealing with security challenges. You have to look at the national security strategy of 2019 that allocated tasks and responsibilities to the various components of Nigerian society. But unfortunately, it is all motion, no movement. So lofty ideals, I think we have to muster to make sure that the resources are there and the will to enforce some of these things, especially in terms of legislation and laws, so that people can obey. But most importantly is to mobilize the people so that they will understand that, look, the issue of security is a collective responsibility.
Yes, okay. Some governors have attempted to use force to quell insurgency, while others have opted for negotiation, just like Obasani of Kaduna State. What lessons can be learned from these different approaches, and how can they inform a more effective counter-insurgency strategy?
So much as I don't want to preempt an article that just putting a finishing touch in respect of this issue of dialogue or not. I would have loved to, but all the same, now it's understandable. Both perspectives want the very best for the society. This one, they have hard stand. Katsina, Zamfara, they are opposed to it. But if you are following things, you will understand that actually, take for instance, I know of the Katsina state governor, he is not opposed to it. But I think the condition he gave for this dialogue to take place are quite reasonable. One, there was an effort of giving the bandits amnesty, and it failed woefully, not just in Katsina state but also in Zamfara state. So once bitten, twice shy. Sure, yeah. So you have to. Then of course, naturally, there is no way you can have this kind of thing without thinking of justice. Justice not only to the victims but even the perpetrators of the crime. You look at what happened in the 90s in Rwanda. They were able to overcome it simply because they were able to ensure that justice was also done. So you cannot think of dialogue, and you don't even go to negotiating table from the position of weakness, unless if you are coerced into it. We have more than capable enough, security forces that can deal with these criminal elements. So give them all the support they can. let us reach certain level, let them understand, acquiesce to the fact that there is need for them to really lay down their arms. Then you give them terms and conditions, not that you go out looking for them. Then that is one. Secondly, everything that you are doing is about people. You need to sensitize the people, so that, because at the end of the day, when there is demobilization, the radicalization, there will be integration. They will go back into the society. So if you don't have the buy-in of the society, how do you integrate such people? And we have had instances. For instance, I know for sure there is a particular, repentant terrorist who goes by the nickname Rugurugu. The society heard about it, where he came from, and they said, no, over their dead body, that guy cannot come back, because he was instrumental to the mayhem that was perpetrated in the society, killing and destruction of properties and all the rest. So you need to sensitize the people, make them understand that you cannot kill everybody. At a certain point in time, there must be peace, and these are the terms and conditions, and they are not the one that will dictate, giving peace. Then that is issue number 2. Number 3, it must be holistic and comprehensive. So it is not just issue of the people, but even among, because there is no way you can think of negotiation or dialogue with these bandits or criminals, bandits and kidnappers, without the cooperation and the support of the leadership of the various tiers of government, right from federal, state, and the local government, including other stakeholders like traditional rulers and religious leaders, because in the Northwest, they are very, very respectful. So if the state governors do not buy the idea, you cannot have it in just one state. It has to be, all encompassing and comprehensive, so that just like the military has an operation, so much as you are having operation here, those who are trying to run away, you have blocking forces. Otherwise, you will be having peace in Zamfara, and others who are not, and you have quite a number of splinter groups of these criminal elements. So if you are dealing with this, you will end up dealing with the wrong people, because we have had instances where they even castigate and deny the issue of peace. And if you remember, there was his own rest in peace, a former chief of defense staff, he talked about negotiation with Boko Haram. They came out flatly and lied. And now that you have various factions of it, so you have to think along all those lines that yes, we can. But sincerely speaking, we cannot continue like that. We have to explore everything legitimately possible to make sure that this conflict is resolved, so that people can live in peace. Let there be meaningful development in all the Nigerian society.
Okay, so now the idea of granting amnesty to repentant Boko Haram fighters is a contentious issue. What are the arguments for this and the approach on how to implement a way to balance justice and accountability?
Well, I think you should have been the one that will answer, because you do a lot of research and you come across various, people ranging from scholars, professionals and all the rest. But given the best practice and experience we have had in Liberia, we have had in Sierra Leone, and recently we have in Rwanda. So these are the kind of things. First and foremost, we have been enumerating these things. First and foremost, whichever you are whichever strategy you are adopting, you have to think of the people. You have to sensitize them. You have to get their buy-in, so that they will understand why these things are going to be done the way they are being done. So I mean, that is one. And secondly, again, you look at what are those international best practices. Yes, we have had experience like Operation Safe Corridor that we have, and people highly understand that actually these people, the repentant Boko Harams that you are talking about, it is even part of international humanitarian law, the law of armed conflicts, in which Nigeria is signatory to, that when somebody, you are in contention with him or her, or you are in conflicts and you are bearing arms, that person decides to lay his or her arms voluntarily, you cannot, harm the person. So now here you are, and if you look at the history of Boko Haram, because I'm sure the insurgents we are talking about were making reference to the Boko Haram, regardless of the various splinter, either Ansaru, Islamic State for West Africa, or the normal Boko Haram that, Islamic, the Jama'atu Ahl Sunnah Lid Da'awati, but you look at the circumstances of how some of them, get into there. Let's even look at the Chibok schoolgirls that were abducted. Now, some of them have been married up. You know that they did not go to Boko Haram camps with their consent. In the first place, they are minors.
Yeah.
And I could remember when I was director of Army Public Relations, there was a particular instance. Somebody, a parent, donated his underage girl as part of his contribution to the cause of, propagating religion of Boko Haram. And somehow her conscience was touched. She was asked with one other girl to go and bomb University of Maiduguri. But somewhere along the line, she refused to. And of course, the story came out. So how can you harm such person? First and foremost, she was underage. And look at the circumstances. And so some of them, including the men, what they do whenever they attack a town or capture a town, remember there was even a time they hoisted flag, they kind of covet some part of territory of the Nigerian society, would go there being the capital of their caliphate. Now they elsewhere, there is nothing you can do. So they look at everything as booty of war, the material acquisition, men and women, the able-bodied people, they conscript them into the system. But there is nothing you can do. You cannot run away. So such people, you have to look at them, the level of their involvement, in that instance. And those are the kind of people that you have information, safe corridor. And I could remember vividly in Gambarungala, and I'm so happy and proud of it, that we were the one who dismantled Boko Haram, enclave in that place and hoisted Nigerian flag that couldn't have been 3 years ago. And in fact, at Fotokol, just across the river, there were Nigerians who are, refugees. Across just the river, less than 300 meters, you are seeing your home. For 3 years, nobody has talked to them. All of us will become emotional because you can just imagine yourself, somebody will put you in this place for 3 years, you cannot go to.
Yes.
So, but suddenly there is peace and all the rest of the thing. So what I'm trying to say here is that there's not everybody that believe in the ideology of Boko Haram. They were coerced into it. So people should understand that. And that is why there is need to, properly investigate. And I know there is always a joint investigation board, JIB, that comprise all the professional and the security agencies in which they will thoroughly investigate, including the civilian JTF, the level of involvement, because everybody knows everyone. Even though we don't have data, the communal way of life, that's actually such person. And I will give you an example. There was a time when we were moving towards either Dikwa or somewhere. So Boko Haram ambushed us, and in fact, a general was wounded, and we lost some soldiers. In the process, of course, quite a number of Boko Harams were killed. But again, there were some headers. About 5 of them, they mingled with them, and luckily enough, the herders were courageous enough to raise hand and settle. So eventually, we were able to sort them out. By the time they were investigating, I was watching. The commanding officers, they were able to extract the Boko Haram without even the use of technology. And what was it? In most instances, there is serious substance abuse among all these insurgents and bandits and kidnappers. An average human being, it, hardly will go and kill someone just like that. We are, peace-loving people, but somehow the level of, use or abuse of drug is unprecedented. So, part of it, we are able to detect that, of course, they have all. And apart from that, once you fire, you fire a weapon, no matter, so long as it is within reasonable time, you are the one who fire, but the odor of the sulfur and the rest of them will be on you. So these are some of the things, and a lot of people hardly know. So you have to investigate thoroughly to understand the level of involvement before you think of whether he or she bear grievous distance. But of course, there are those, the hardened ones. They are in Giwa project. I think they are undergoing trial. And I will give you an example to tell you that what people are thinking is not exactly the way it is. There was a time when those at the holding area, they said, well, they deny them access to religious books and all the rest so that they cannot lapse back into it. But eventually, their, council and all the rest, that they are impinging on their right and all the rest. Of course, they say, okay, give them Holy Quran, let them be reading. Of course, maybe it will calm them. So one of the key commanders, after reading the Holy Quran, of course, he, from Baqarah to Nasi, he was able to finish, but in his own skewed mind that he has to make sacrifice. And that sacrifice, it has to be with blood, either animal, any type. But what he did, he went to the nearest fellow detainee who was younger and used his teeth, to bite him till, blood was oozing out of him. So he felt happy and satisfied. And even when he was asked whether he said he felt no remorse. And again, there were some of them actually, when they want to indoctrinate you, they will ask you to do most bizarre, some of them were made to kill their parents. There was a particular person that went and killed his own biological father. Not that they are having any, that just to prove that actually he can do that. And when he was asked, he said, look, that any regret, he said he has no regret. In fact, the father was following the wrong thing, so wrong path. So instead of him to be perpetrating such atrocity and in criminality following a couple, it's better that he should get rid of him. That even if he comes back, he will still kill him. So it is that bad. So people should understand the extent to which some of these issues are and the level of involvement of some of this. And most importantly, you cannot kill everybody. But again, it is not true that they are being integrated into the security architecture. They are not. Rather, the society on its own volition take on their kith and kin that were really, that have gone through the process of, the radicalization. And of course, they keep on monitoring them as the case may be. So possibly we will build on that and build on the, Borno example and the Malan Sidi example. So when you combine these things, maybe we will have a better way of dealing with, this repentant people.
Yes. But do you think insecurity and the insurgency can be wiped out totally from Nigeria anytime soon?
It's just like you wiping out humanity. Is it possible?
No.
Good. So you look at the circumstances that brought about this. And I told you some of them, they are rooted on issue of governance. And if you look at how Boko Haram started, they did not start as a violent organization. They were against the decay and the level of corruption in the society. They started advocating for social justice, but not knowing that they have ulterior motive. We have had instances, people burning their certificate because they said it is useless simply because, and come to think of it, the so-called elite, the so-called educated people are the people that are the most corrupt. And that is what they are agitating against. So unless you deal with this, even if you kill all the Boko Haram, all the bandits today, another set could come up simply because the issues that brought about that have not been properly addressed. And that is why it is very important when you are dealing with complex situation of this nature, you combine both the kinetic and non-kinetic. The kinetic using the force, and the non-kinetic is trying to see how best you can improve the socio-economic well-being of the people, addressing the root causes of this. Take for instance, is the local government system working? Now people, had it been that the local government system is working, problems that can easily be dealt with at the local government level could have been dealt with. So now the local government system is not working. All the problems have been, aggregated, dumped to the state. The state is overwhelmed to the federal government. So unless we improve on those and integrate some components of the Nigerian society that have not been, do not have constitutional role. Take for instance the traditional institution, even in the capital territory where they don't have strong, the traditional rulers of the various communities, they hold sway because they know their people. Whenever there is a strange face, they know. So how do we integrate them? How do we coordinate the activities? It is very, very clear that we need to integrate other components of Nigerian society in deal with this issue. So the issue of wiping does not even arise. I've heard stories of people that they say no, drop bomb and all the rest of the thing, but you cannot do that without timely and accurate information. Otherwise, you have collateral damage. And of course, sometimes the society, it may interest you to know that because the economic hardship, of course, poverty, it has been said, is not an excuse for crime.
Yes.
But nevertheless, now, in those days, I could remember when a gallon, 5 liters of petrol costs as much as, let's assume, 5,000 naira in Maiduguri city. Okay? Now, when they take you to the insurgent, it costs thrice higher.
Yeah.
Sometimes it is 20, 30,000. And then for somebody who has not seen money, it's better that he should take the risk. And
yes.
so, but not knowing that he is fueling the machinery of violence. Or sometimes it is bread. Or sometimes it could be anything. There were instances, actually, people were arrested, buying bread for about 20, 30 people when they know that they are not even married. So these are the kind of things that you have to take into consideration before you make a sweeping statement that it can be wiped out. The thing did not happen overnight, so the solution is not overnight. But I think we are getting there with the right attitude, support, and cooperation, even though government has the most important role to play and giving sense of direction. So when you do that, you can think of that way of wiping. But I think wiping should not be the best way. How to mitigate and reduce it to the various minimum.
Yes. Okay. Well, and that's all we can take for today. Thank you so much, General, for joining us, and happy birthday.
Thank you so much. It's a great pleasure for me to be here too.
You're welcome. Well, many thanks for watching. Bye for now.